Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial, and in this one I'm going to show you guys how to create some interesting looking edge wear and tear inside of Redshift that is going to add an extra level of realism to your materials, especially your metallic materials. So this is an example of what we're going to learn to create today. Using this technique, you can add some very realistic looking wear and tear to the edges of your materials. So yeah, let's have a look at inside this material. So I'm going to create this material from scratch so that you guys can follow along with me. And the scene here, this is a template scene that I downloaded from online. I think it belongs to Rick Noseworthy, if I can pronounce his name right. But I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of the scene, shader ball scene. So you guys, if you want, you guys can follow along and recreate the same effect. All right. So let me just duplicate this material and let me name this metallic 2. Okay, underscore 2. I'm gonna delete everything except the textures. All right. I have a very, as you can see, it looks a bit complicated, but it's not that complicated. Okay, we're gonna recreate this, and it's gonna be very simple. You'll see in a sec. It's only a few nodes. So let me just delete everything. Okay. So I think I have to assign this material to this guy. So currently, all I have are some textures. Let me just pipe them in to see. Oh, I also have a material blender here, which I also want to delete. And right now, we don't have any textures on our shader ball. Okay, so I have like 3. I think I have 2 textures. Sorry, I have 2 textures. I have a scratch texture and I have a gloss texture. I think it's the same scratch texture. Yeah. So same map. I think these are the same textures. Actually, I could just use one. It's just one with a higher gamma. But yeah, you could use different ones if you want, but I'm just gonna use the same texture. Okay. So let's get started then. Okay. So in order to achieve that edge wear and tear effect, we have to first generate an edge map. Okay. And in order to do that, there's this really handy tool or node inside Redshift called the Curvature Node. I'm pretty sure for those of you who have used Redshift before, you are aware of this node. But if you aren't, if you haven't really used this node is practically magic, honestly. So I'm just gonna press C. The new node editor, I know it can be confusing at times, but I'm getting used to it. Usually you have all your nodes here, but now you don't, right? And you have to always go and create another node. But the easiest way to do it is to just press C, and if you know what you're looking for, you're good to go. But if you're not, you just have to like search and stuff. So I'm just gonna type in curvature because I know I need curvature, right? And I'm gonna show you guys what this node does in a sec. Okay, so I'm just gonna solo this out. All right, and already you can see like our mesh. Let me just make some space here so that you guys can see it. Our mesh is colored in some weird way, and it's giving us white values in the areas where there's a sharp sort of curvature in our mesh, and black where it's a flat surface. All right. This is the mesh. I don't think you can see it here because it's dark. But you get the idea, right? The areas where you have this curve, the more curved the surface is, it gets more white. Essentially, that's what this node gives. It gives you information about the curvature of the surface of your mesh, right? We have some settings that we can adjust here. For example, the radius, the amount it looks, or the diffuse amount essentially diffuses from the curvature mesh into like the flat surface, and there are some remapping options here as well. Okay, so this in its vanilla form is not that useful, right? You really do not want this uniform edge for your meshes, right? You need to break this apart, and I need to find some way so that I can use this texture. Unfortunately, this texture is not showing up. Let me so I need to find a way to like use this texture to break apart these like white areas, right? So in order to do that, I use a technique that I developed myself. I've seen other people use other methods to achieve the same look. I've tried those methods, but for me, this technique works best, right? So you guys can like look into the or you can like try out this one. Whatever feels right, you can use for your project. So I'm going to show you the one that I use essentially. So I use a range mapper. So let me grab a range mapper and I just plug it in here and I use this range mapped value into my radius. Okay, so let's see what happens here. And instantly you can see like the edges are getting broken, right? And the good thing about this is we can control it. You can control it using this guy. So now you can essentially control where the edges are going to get broken, and you can make it more diffuse if you want. And instantly you get some really like nice looking edges, and it's looking, you have a layer mask already that you can use to mask out the metallic as versus the plastic parts essentially. So the next step is I think to add some color correction to our original texture. We don't want to use the texture as it is, so we want to do some color correction. For example, I want to add some more contrast, okay? So I'm going to reduce the gamma a bit, and I'm also going to reduce the contrast a bit, okay? And I'm going to also attach a ramp node after the curvature so that I can control it. I'm going to pipe it into the alt input, and yeah. So be aware, you need to pipe it into the alt input, and the general input alt input, right? Do not pipe it into the input. So we have our sort of base mask that we can use. There are a lot of options in the remap of the curvature node that you can use. If you want, for example, the bias, I think that essentially pushes the black values a bit. And if you move it below 0.5, it sort of crunches it as well. But you can like play around with these values. And we will do that in a sec, okay? Because right now we can't really tell how that's going to affect the overall look. So we're going to attach a secondary sort of an actual shader that we can actually visualize the effect. So yeah, so let's create a shader. So I'm going to create a Redshift standard shader, standard material, and I need two materials, okay? I'm going to need one plastic material, we have material blender, we also need a material blender, okay? Yeah. So I have two materials. I'm gonna just use these. Okay, so for the first one, I'm gonna use a plastic material. So maybe a reddish sort of. Let me just solo this. So yeah, maybe a reddish or maybe a yellowish. Yeah, something like that would be good. Okay. And for the next one, for the one that is gonna be revealed by the scratches, I'm gonna use a metallic one. Okay. So I can grab one from one of those presets. Maybe I'm gonna use something like iron. Yeah, and maybe a little less roughness. Or even I think silver works as well. Yeah, 3 is the roughness. Now we're gonna use a material blender, and we're gonna like basically blend these two materials together. Okay, so I'm gonna use the base material here, the plastic one as the base. That's gonna just give me like the base coating. I'm gonna use the metallic material over it, but right now you can't see anything because we haven't really attached a layer mask to it. So we're gonna pump in this ramp node that we are getting from our curvature node, and I'm gonna pump it into layer 1 blend color. And already you can see like the effect sort of forming, right? But it's not perfect. So that's where you come in on and play around with this, okay? So let's play around with these values, okay? I think we're gonna have to pump the textures is not showing up. I think there might be an issue with my IPR. Maybe I have to reload it. Yeah, so there you go. There was an IPR issue, and already we can see the wear and tear coming through really nicely. So yeah, so I think that's the gist of it. Already this is giving us that sort of interesting look. You can control the values for starters using the range mapper. You can change the range max. You can increase it, you can decrease it to make the edges more tighter. Maybe if you want more diffuse, you can increase that if you want. Okay, so yeah, depending upon your creative or the sort of look that you're going for, you can play around with these values. You can play around the color correct. You can maybe increase the gamma to make it get a more diffuse look, or maybe reduce it to get a more, you know, tight edge look. So yeah, I think I'm liking, is it, yeah, somewhere about that. Maybe the plastic material, maybe I want this to be a little more sort of, you know, tainted, a little less sort of, yeah. I also want some bump, because right now, yeah, we are getting some wear and tear, but it isn't really, you know, affecting the surface. Maybe we want some fake, you know, imperfection using the bump map, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to pump it into a bump map, the secondary texture. It's just essentially the same texture. This is the texture. I'm going to essentially the same texture. I'm going to pump it into the input, and I'm going to use it as, let's try to use it as the metallic one first. Okay, I think it's inverted, so maybe it's too much. Maybe you have to reload the IP here. It's a bit too strong. It's looking a bit too strong. Let me just sort of render a specific region to see what's wrong here. Let's pump it in both of them. Okay. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's 0.005. Yeah. All right. Then there you go. Now it's working correctly. Yeah. There you go. So yeah, we're getting that really nice wear and tear effect from our texture, and it's already looking really nice. I may want to, yeah, may want to change that color a bit. I also want to play around with the bias value, which, if you can remember, it sort of pushes those sort of let me show you guys. Yeah, let me solo this. It pushes those values, so here you can see, pushes those values up, so the edges kind of grow a bit. So let me just go back to the blend material, and yeah, I don't think you can see it using because of the YouTube compression, but the edges become more pronounced if you play around with the bias. Okay, but you don't want it too much, because again, you do not want your plastic areas or your main coat to get affected, so you need to find a good balance. Sometimes gain helps, but not in this case. I think I'm going to keep it here. Another small sort of detail that I tend to add for all my metallic sort of materials is some splashes, or some, you know, tiny microscopic scratches on the surface, and I do that using a diffuse material. So let me just create a diffuse material. Okay, let's just use where is it? Plastic. Yeah, I'm just gonna use a white plastic. Okay, and I'm gonna use this 100% roughness. Okay, and I'm gonna use it as the second layer. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this guy as my layer mask, and in this case I'm gonna really bump up the contrast. Okay, so let's see. Let me increase the contrast a bit. Yeah, and let me just use it as the blend color, and let's see. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You can see some splashes, or whatever you call it. I really love that sort of, micro scratches that really adds that extra level of detail to my renders. But then again, it's a personal creative choice. If you like it, you can keep it. If you don't, you can not keep it. It's up to you. But yeah. So I think that essentially covers it. We have practically recreated the entire material from scratch. Let me just fill this window so that you guys can see a bit better. I hope YouTube compression doesn't kill the effect. But yeah, you can see some really organic looking, edge imperfections now, which really adds, as I said, really adds that extra level of realism to all your materials. In real life, objects tend to sort of collide in these sort of corners or areas with high curvature because they're more prone to collisions, right? And that's how you get those edge wear interiors, essentially. If Redshift did not have this node, this curvature node, you probably would have to do it using Substance Designer, which also has, I think, its own curvature node. Octane has its dirt node as well, which essentially achieves the same look. It's a bit more easier if you do it using Octane, I think. But yeah, it's a really amazing node. I think it's really useful. You play around with it, see what sort of looks you guys can achieve with it. I've used it a lot of times in my renders to create some interesting looking metallic materials. So yeah, I think that is it for today, I guess. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys loved this video, do hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do subscribe, because I'm gonna be creating more tutorials in the coming weeks. So yeah, thank you guys for joining today. So yeah, let's keep it here. Peace out.